Hello everyone, my name is Hope and welcome back to my channel. I like musicals, they're a big part of my life, and today we're going to be talking about Sweeney Todd. I've never used my phone as a mic before, so that's new. And I've wanted to make a video like this for a while, but I haven't. But now I am. And who knows if this is going to be a good video. I don't know how long it's going to be. We're going to just find out as we go. But I'm so ready. I am so ready to talk about this. So, Sweeney Todd is a musical written by Stephen Sondheim. This musical came out in 1979, which honestly I thought it was older. I really did. I thought it was older, but it's not. It is in fact not. Also, I do not know what I'm on. This energy has just appeared as I've started filming, but it's here now, so we'll see how long it lasts. But this is actually one of Sondheim's later musicals, before this company had come out, and funny thing had happened on the way to the Forum had come out, and West Side Story had come out, even though he didn't write that one, but he did the music. So, live and let live. But I would say arguably this is probably Sondheim's biggest show. That is controversial, probably is, I don't know. But it's one of my favourites, it's my second favourite Sondheim, behind Company. But it is one of my favourite musicals of all time as well, because it's Stephen Sondheim, and I love him, if you didn't already know. But enough of me talking about how much I love Stephen Sondheim, because I could genuinely do that for the rest of this video, and let me just get on to talking about Sweeney Todd. So, it's 1846, and everyone's poor and hates the government, so honestly, what's new there? And we're in London, and there is a young man called Anthony Hope, and he is with a man called Sweeney Todd. Remember him, he's pretty important to the story. Anyway, Anthony is young, and he's cute, and he's just come back from his little trip around the world, where he saw lots of cool things. And on that trip, he saved Sweeney Todd. And so they're like besties, or whatever. They're not, but Anthony would like to think that. And I'm not going to lie, Sweeney Todd is he's so moody. He is such a moody man. But he thanks Anthony for saving his life, because, you know, that's the decent thing to do. And the two of them are chatting, they're living their best lives. Sweeney really wants Anthony to go away, but Anthony's too naive to even think about it. And this woman comes up, and she is a beggar woman, and she starts singing to them, being like, arms, arms for a miserable woman, because she's miserable. And she starts trying to sell them things. I don't know if I can say her profession on this platform, but she tries to sell her body, and they give her some money, and she goes on her merry way. I do just want to mention, I always thought the lyrics to the song were arms, arms, as in like arms, arms. It's not. It's arms with an L. I think Sondheim said that he made this word up, but honestly, I like arms, arms better. Like, she's holding out her arms. Like, that's what they do in every production. They hold out their arms and they're like, arms, arms for a miserable woman. And it's not arms. It's arms. Also, Sondheim in his book, Finishing the Hat, which I have right here, which is lots of lyrics and tidbits about his life and his works, he talks about what he had to do for the regional productions and like high school productions of this show. Why high schools are doing this production, I do not know. He talks about having to change the lyrics of this song, obviously. So I'm going to give you the real lyrics, and then I'm going to give you the Heather's Junior equivalent of the lyrics. So she goes, ow, would you like a little muff, dear? A little jig jig, a little bounce around the bush. Wouldn't you like to push me parsley? It looks to me, dear, like you got plenty there to push. And then she touches him in an interesting place. The altered high school version lyrics are, oh, would you like a little kiss, dear? I'll be your girlfriend. You won't do better on the docks. Wouldn't you like to take me dancing and be my boyfriend and buy me lots of pretty frocks? Oh, I think it hurts Stephen Sondheim as much as it hurts me, if I'm honest. But as I said, she leaves. She's gone. She's gone on her merry way. And Todd and Anthony go back to chatting. They're having a little chit chat. Sweeney wants him to leave because he's moody and wants to be left alone. But he's like, well, if you're not going to leave, I'm just going to tell you this kind of mystic version of what happened to me, which is Todd was sent away. Sweeney was sent away by the judge of London, of the town. I don't really know. The judge. He comes back. We'll talk about him later. Because the judge fancied his wife, and he was like, well, I fancy your wife, and I can't be with your wife if you're not here, so bye. And then he leaves. That is how Sweeney left. And now he's come back. And I think it's like 12 years or something. So it's taken him 12 years to get back to London. But we will get more into that later, because it does actually make more sense when you learn more about it. But Anthony's like, okay, bye, Sweeney. And Sweeney's like, bye. And he walks down the London streets. And he comes across this pie shop. This pie shop is on Fleet Street, which is obviously important because he's the demon barber of Fleet Street. And he meets this woman in the pie shop, and her name is Mrs. Lover. Mrs. Lover is probably everybody's favourite character in this show. I feel like I couldn't really see it being anyone else. She's a bit wayward, a bit crazy, but we love her and it's great. But she sings a little song about how her meat pies are truly disgusting, and everybody agrees. She reveals because she fancies Sweeney Todd, because of course she does. He's a silver fox. And she's like, there's an empty room upstairs if you want it. And she talks about this dude called Benjamin Barker and how he used to live there, but he got transported for life to Australia because the judge of the town made up some false claims and sends him on his merry way. Does the story sound familiar? She then talks about the Beadle, who is essentially the judge's like second in command, I guess. He's like his servant, I think, but he has a bit more like stature than that. I think he's like a religious figure or whatever. I'm really not sure. He's just like the second in command to the judge, essentially. And she talks about the Beadle and how the Beadle told Lucy, which is Benjamin Barker's wife's name, that she's invited to this masked ball, which she doesn't want to go to because her husband has just been shipped halfway across the ocean, but she's forced to go, and then some not very nice things happen to her at the ball. I'm not going to say what they are, but you can probably guess it's not very nice. It involves the judge and her and everyone at the party. So just try and read between the lines, you know? Sweeney Todd's like, I don't know if you know this, but I was actually in the video, the I Am Benjamin Barker, who would have guessed? And Mrs. Lovett's like, oh my god, I didn't know that. I can't believe it. I'm shocked. But he also tells her that his wife, Lucy, because he asked about her, because obviously you would when you've been missing for 12 years and have come back to find your wife. And Mrs. Lovett's like, yeah, interesting story. She's dead because she had to spend all of her time with the judge and she hated him because he's a horrible, horrible person. We will get onto that later. But she poisons herself and dies because she doesn't want to be with him. And it turns out that Lucy had a daughter who they called Joanna, and she became the judge's ward. So Sweeney's like, I'm sorry. The judge who sent me away for so long has in fact made my wife die and is raising my daughter as his own. And Sweeney's rightfully not okay with this, right? He's like, well, I'm going to kill the judge and I'm going to kill the Beadle because you abused my wife and you have my child. Rightfully so. And Mrs. Lovett's like, oh, look, I still have the razors that you used because he's a barber, which I feel like really isn't mentioned up until this point that he was a barber, but he is a barber. And he's like, cool, I'm going to be a barber again. So we leave Sweeney Todd for a bit and we go back to Anthony. Do you remember Anthony, the sailor from the beginning that saved Sweeney Todd's life? And he's walking down the streets. He's feeling great because he's just back and he's nice. He loves London. He is a hashtag tourist boy. He loves London, and he says it many, many times. And he sees this girl, this blonde girl in a tower, basically like Rapunzel. He is love at first sight. He sees her and he's like, wow, that is the girl for me. And he gets her a bird and she sings about the bird because the girl is in fact Joanna. Joanna is essentially imprisoned by the judge. She's not allowed to leave the house. She can look out her window, but if she's looking at other people out the window, the judge doesn't like that. She has to go back inside. He's not okay with that. But she sees him and she also fancies him, and it's giving Maria and Tony in West Side Story. That is what it's giving on the balcony. That is what's happening. And they really fancy each other. But she can't leave, obviously, because of the judge. But Anthony's like, I'm going to get you back. I'm going to get back, Joanna. But then the judge sees him and he has to run off. He's like, no boys for you, only me. And we're going to talk about that later. Oh, I'm not looking forward to that part of the video. We're in the London marketplace and Mrs. Lover and Sweeney Todd are walking around. And there's this guy on the stage. I say guy, I mean 10-year-old child, and his name is Tobias. And he is trying to sell this miracle hair growing elixir. He's like, this elixir gave me all this hair. It works its magic. I promise it's great. And he works for a man called Pirelli. Pirelli is an Italian salesman, I guess. He's a travelling salesman. And Mr. Todd and Mrs. Lover are like, huh? Like, this guy is very flamboyant, and they're a bit like, I don't believe you. And it turns out that the miracle elixir is a mixture of urine and ink. And rightfully so, Pirelli's like really mad about this because he's just ruined his whole scheme and no one's buying his thing, so he can't make any money. So he's like, I'm going to challenge you to a contest, bro. We're going to have a shaving contest and we're going to shave people and we're going to see who does better. And Sweeney's like, grand, great, amazing, exactly what I'm up for. And Sweeney wins. And Pirelli is very angry. He's not happy about this at all. But not only is like the whole town there, like just the average people amongst the crowd, is the beadle. The beadle, the judge's beadle. And he's like, wow, you can shave people. I must take your number, even though they didn't have numbers in 1846, because I don't think they had phones. Anyway, Sweeney's like, hey, come for a free shave. It will be great. You'll have a great time. I'll give you a great shave. And the beadle's like, yeah, I'll keep that in mind. So a few days pass. We are with the judge, and he is in, I guess, his chambers. I guess that's where he is, what he's doing. And he's being he's being a judge. Okay, this is the thing I was really not sure I wanted to talk about, but we're talking about it and we're doing it. Okay, so quick note about this song. It's called Joanna, the Mea Culpa, and the judge is a religious man. Obviously, he looks to God in regards to justice and stuff, but this song is cut out of a lot of productions of this show, and I'm going to explain to you as to why. This song is Judge Turpin singing about Joanna, his adopted daughter, and how he doesn't like other men looking at her, which is already a red flag until he tells us that he wants to marry Joanna. He fancies Joanna, this child that he has raised from infancy, and he wants to marry her and do things to her, and like he really fancies her, and so he starts whipping himself, like praying to God to say, why are you making me do this? Like, why are you giving me this challenge? Why do I fancy my daughter? Like, that is wrong. But he doesn't care. Like, literally by the end of the song, he's like, well, I guess this feeling isn't going away, so I guess I've just got to marry her. When you say it out loud, it's even worse. And like, the song is pretty dark, and they do cut it out a lot, because genuinely Stephen Sondheim's goal for this song, he says it in his book, is that he wanted this song to be the first song where a character has an orgasm in the song. I can't. So many people I talk to about the show, and I bring up this scene because I just think it's like so messed up, and everyone has never heard of this scene. Bro, it's traumatic. It's well and truly traumatic. Anyway, that's what the judge is doing. But like the general takeaway from this is he wants to marry Joanna. Okay, so Sweeney is waiting in his little barbershop for the beadle, because the beadle was like, I'm gonna come over. I'm gonna get myself that free shave that you offered me. And they're waiting. Sweeney's like, I'm ready to kill this man. I'm so ready. Anthony, remember Anthony? He comes in and he's like, I've met this girl, Sweeney, and I'm gonna marry her because she is great and she's blonde and her name is Joanna. And I'm gonna marry her and we're gonna run off together and everything's gonna be great. And Sweeney's like, Joanna? And he's like, well, I want to get my daughter back, but I don't want to tell him that she's my daughter because of secrets and stuff. So I'm gonna help you. You can stay here and you can have this as your safe house or whatever, but just bring Joanna here. When you save her, bring her back and let me know about it. So Anthony leaves and they're waiting for the beadle still. And they have a knock on the door and they open it and it's not the beadle. It is Tobias and Pirelli. Pirelli's like, how dare you take my business? How dare you do that to me? That was a bad move on your part, because now things aren't going to end very well for you. And Sweeney's completely unfazed. But Sweeney's like, let's hit this upstairs. And Mrs. Lovett's like, cool. Grand. Got it. And she takes Tobias, who is like the 10-year-old boy that I mentioned before, downstairs, and he's gonna have a pie. He's gonna have a nice time, you know? So Pirelli and Sweeney are alone. And Pirelli drops the bomb on Sweeney that he is not Italian at all. In fact, he is an Irish man. Have I ever seen someone do a good Irish accent when playing Pirelli? No. But he's supposed to be Irish. Anyway, turns out that not only is he not English, he also knows who Sweeney Todd is. He knows that Sweeney Todd is Benjamin Barker because he used to be his assistant. And Pirelli's like, well, I know who you are and I can tell everyone and you're supposed to be in jail. So give me half your income forever and I won't say anything. Sweeney obviously is like, sure. And then he slits his throat and puts him in a box. No, I'm not lying. That is genuinely what happens. He's like, yeah, sure. And he dies. And obviously while this is all happening, other things have to be happening in the world. And so Anthony's met with Joanna again. And it's like, we're going to marry, we're going to leave, I'm going to get you out of here. Joanna's like, great, amazing, cool. I've known you for 5 minutes, but it's got to be better than whatever I'm in right now. And whilst that is going on the other side of town, the judge is walking with the beadle, and the judge is like, Joanna doesn't fancy me. Like, why doesn't she fancy me? Maybe because she's your dad. Maybe. And the beadle's like, you know what? You know what might make her fancy you? A shave. And so he's like, go to Sweeney Todd. He's an amazing guy. He's an amazing barber, and he can do all this stuff for you. And the judge is like, great. Amazing idea. That will get Joanna to marry me, which isn't messed up at all. But anyway, Mrs. Lovett comes in, and clearly Pirelli's gone because he's dead and in a box. And they're like, what are we supposed to do with this person in a box? And the judge turns up, and they're like, well, bigger problems, because Sweeney's like, oh, I'm ready. I'm so ready to do this. I'm so ready to kill this man. And he sits him down in the chair, and he's like, of course, I'll give you a shave. But in fact, he wants to kill him. He's very ready for that. And they're talking about women. They're talking about pretty women, which, you know, Sweeney just thinks he's just entertaining conversation. He's like, yeah, pretty women. They're great. Unbeknownst to him, the pretty woman that the judge is talking about is his daughter, but everything's great. He's having a great time. He's ready to kill him. But all of a sudden, who comes in? Anthony. And Anthony, being the blabbermouth he is like, I found Joanna. We're going to leave. We're going to get eloped. It's great. And the judge is like, what? My daughter? My daughter, what? He's shocked. He's shook. He can't believe it. And he storms out, saying he's never going to come back. He's not going to get the shave, and he's going to take Joanna away forever. So Sweeney Todd is obviously extremely angry. Not only because he can't kill the man who did stuff to his wife and has his daughter, but also because he was this close. He was so close. He was real close. And now he's not dead, and he's roaming the streets of London alive. So Sweeney decides, well, you know, he's not going to come back, but I'm just going to start killing everyone because that's what people deserve. Because there are horrible people like him roaming the earth, and I think they all deserve to die. So Mrs. Lovett is like, okay, cool, that's fine with me, all grand, amazing. But she's like, an idea. My pies taste horrible. So how about we just put the people in the pies? Does that sound like a fun and quirky idea? And Todd says yes. End of Act 1. And I must say, this show is a masterpiece. We're at the intermission, we're having a great time. We've had some phenomenal songs that you should really go and listen to if you haven't already. It's just so great, you know? Stephen Sondheim, musical and lyrical genius. And I thought I would just share some tidbits of information whilst we're on our little intermission from the plot. Fun fact about Stephen Sondheim, he was actually the protege of Oscar Hammerstein. Now, if you don't know Oscar Hammerstein, I'm shocked, but he was part of a little duo which was called Rodgers and Hammerstein, who wrote a few shows, just a few, not too many really well-known ones, but you may have heard of some of them. And he talks about Oscar Hammerstein a lot in his book, because Oscar Hammerstein basically taught him everything that he knew, which is great, because Oscar Hammerstein was famous for a reason, you know? And he said that this was a lot of what Hammerstein had taught him was like a big influence on Sweeney Todd, like as a whole. And I think what's so funny about this piece of knowledge is that it really says, you can copy my homework, but don't make it look the same. And then Sondheim said, I'm going to take that piece of advice and run with it. Because if you were to tell me that the Demon Barber of Fleet Street, Sweeney Todd, and all of its music was modelled after Rodgers and Hammerstein musicals, I don't think I would have believed you. Like, yes, I love the similarities between Oklahoma and Sweeney Todd. I think it sounds so similar to Cinderella. Like, yes, Carousel and Sweeney Todd. The same thing. And while you cannot deny that, like, some of the songs in, like, Rodgers and Hammerstein shows, like, you can definitely see where Sondheim took from. Like, Lonely Room from Oklahoma is very much like a Sweeney Todd song. Like, you can hear it. But just as a whole, I think it's absolutely hilarious that Sondheim's like, I took so much from that man, like, he taught me so much, and then proceeds to make musicals that are absolutely nothing like anything that he wrote. Which is great, because it proves that Sondheim was a genius, and he was amazing, and he was ridiculously talented, but nonetheless, still hilarious. In Finishing the Hat as well, he also talks about how Sweeney Todd was a flop on Broadway and the West End, and how when a lot of his shows came out, there was a lot of reviews that came out that were mostly negative. People in the 70s and 80s really didn't like Sondheim. And he was talking about Sweeney and how people hated it when it came out. They were like, we don't get it, it's weird, it's bad. And now it's like one of his most loved pieces of work. And it really just shows that he was ahead of his time, because I don't see any recent Sondheims. Do you? Can you name anyone that came out in the last 10 years that can make music as good as Sondheim? I don't think so. Like, there are some great composers out there. I think Pasek and Paul and some other contemporary composers that I can't think of right now have a lot of talent and potential, but none of them can compare to Mr. Stephen Sondheim, and I will take that information to the grave. After that brief intermission, let's go back to the plot. It's Act 2. We love Act 2. I actually prefer Act 1, but Act 2 is also great, so there. And it's many, many weeks later, and the pie shop is booming. Everyone loves the pies. They taste great. Everyone's like, God, that is so good. I love it. They taste so nice. What did you put in it? What is your special ingredient? And they're like, it's just a love it special, dear. Don't worry about it. Also, Tobias, the kid who was like working with Pirelli, he works for them now because they were like, Pirelli ran off, so work with me. It's great. We're having a great time. And Todd has been a little engineer and made himself a chair which is like a mechanical chair, which where you pull it, like sends the people down to the meat shop, to the meat shop where people die. I can't explain it any better. I think I can put in like a video or something of people like doing it in like a school production, and that hopefully that makes more sense. But that's what's in the Bob shop now, because they're not giving people nice shaves, they are just straight up killing people. And the fact they haven't been sussed out before is well and truly shocking. Whilst this is all going on, Todd's really sad. Todd he's in his depressive era. He's not happy. I mean, he's not been happy this whole show, but he's really not happy now, because he's like, I'm never going to see my daughter again, which honestly, fair reason to be sad. Let's be honest. And so he talks to Anthony, and Auntie's like, I'm going to find her. And he does. In a mental asylum. What? So for context, what this means is that the judge saw that she fancied someone her own age who didn't want to keep her prisoner, and that warranted him to put her in a mental asylum. What a great, great man. But I will say that this whole situation does give us objectively the best song in the show, which is the Joanna Quartet. The Joanna Quartet is not my favourite song in the show. I'll tell you, Joanna is my favourite song in the show, and there are many, many songs I prefer more than the Joanna Quartet. But you cannot deny that song, with such pure intelligence and counterpoint in it, is objectively better than the Joanna Quartet. So listen to it, because it's great, as is every song in this show. So this is just a slight interlude. It has started raining, so if you can hear that, I'm sorry, but there's not a lot I can do. I live in England. Carrying on, she's in a mental asylum, and he's like, I'm gonna get out, but not right now because I'm being chased. So he runs and he escapes, and he likes out, but he's like, I'm gonna come back, and I've got it. And he comes back, and he's like, well, what are we gonna do? Because I know where she is, but I can't get her out. And so Sweeney's like, you're gonna pose as a wig maker, and you're gonna go into the mental asylum so you can pretend to make wigs out of mentally ill people's hair, because it's the 1800s and people do that. But Anthony's like, cool, great, amazing, I'm gonna do that, and leaves. And Sweeney, being the smart one he is like, I'm gonna write the judge a letter, and I'm gonna say Anthony's gonna take Joanna and he's gonna bring her back here, so you better be here if you want her back, because obviously he wants to bring her back to the shop to kill him. And he sends the letter. Also, I only bring him up because he is actually relevant to the story at some point. Tobias thinks that, like, Mrs. Lovett is his mom. Like, he doesn't actually, but that's kind of the vibe we get. And she kind of looks after him like she's his son. Like, in Tobias's eyes, he just wants a nice house. He just wants a nice life. He just wants to live under the radar. He's having a grand time. Mrs. Lovett, on the other hand, doesn't. Obviously, she is so up for killing people and making her shop, like, really successful. But also, I don't know if I've mentioned this before, Mrs. Lovett really, really fancies Sweeney. Like, I kind of skipped over it because it wasn't that important, but she does sing a whole song about wanting to live with Sweeney and marry him and have, like, a nice life with him. And for reference, Sweeney does not care. Sweeney does not fancy Mrs. Lovett. He just wants his wife back, but she's dead, so that sucks. And his daughter, and that's all he wants from his life, and he doesn't care about Mrs. Lovett whatsoever. But I just thought I would bring that up. But yes, Tobias loves Mrs. Lovett like a mom. Okay, moving on. Also, he notices that Mrs. Lovett has Pirelli's purse, and he's obviously like, that's a bit sus, because you told me he left, but you have his things. So she's like, yeah, obviously. And then she locks him in the grinding house to, like, grind the meat, which is, like, in the basement. So it's, like, the basement, and then the pie shop, and then Sweeney's Bob shop. And that is, like, the the layout of the house. Also, this isn't really relevant, but there is like an entire 5-minute scene of Mrs. Lovett and the Beatles singing songs at the piano. It's absolutely hilarious, and I think it's arguably one of the best parts of this whole show. But really the only relevant part of this is that Sweeney kills the Beatle. He kills him. He's dead. What a shame. I know we haven't literally talked about his character at all because he is just kind of like the side piece of the judge, but he is a very slimy character too. He's a bit grim, but he is absolutely hilarious in that one scene, so he gets bonus points for that. But we flip back down to Tobias, who's in the basement, and he's eating a pie, and there is some hair and stuff in the pie, and it's giving that one scene in Midsommar, if you've seen that movie. That is what it's giving. He's kind of freaked out, rightfully so. And he looks around, and then the Beatles' body comes down the chute and in there, and Tobias is like, oh, I may have misunderstood the situation, but now I get it. So he runs into the sewers, because he's like, I don't feel safe here, because I could die. So rightfully so, he runs off. And Mrs. Lovett's like, oh crap, Tobias has figured it out. We need to kill him, because that's what they do with everybody. They just plan to kill everybody, and I think we should understand that by this point. Anthony goes back to the asylum to rescue Joanna, but is exposed when Joanna recognises him. She's like, Anthony! Oh, I mean the wig maker. Crap. The warden? I don't really know what they're called. The guard. The person who is keeping all the inmates. I say inmates, patients in the asylum. And he pulls out a gun, and he's like, gonna kill you, but he can't do it because he's too much of a cinnamon roll. But you know who can do it? Joanna. So she does. She kills the guard. And honestly, this is the biggest girl boss move from her at this point. Like, she is pretty innocent and nice the whole time, but you can kind of tell that she's going a little bit crazy because she's been locked inside a house for like the 18 years of her life, and her mother's dead, who she assumes is her father, wants to marry her. So, you know, she's not had the best life. And so she kills this man. And rightfully so she does. And the two of them escape. Anthony and Joanna get to the shop, and Joanna's dressed as a sailor. I can't remember why, but she is. And she hides in a box. Sweeney and Lovett are going for the sewers, trying to find Tobias, because he knows, and he's going to tell everyone, and they're going to end up dying, I guess. I don't really know what their assumption is that's going to happen to them, but whatever it is, it's not going to be good. The beggar woman's around, and she is truly just like stirring the pot. She's singing "The City's on Fire" because all this crazy stuff is happening, and she's there and she's watching it, and she's having a great time. Sweeney and Lovett come back. They haven't found him. They don't know where he's gone. And the beggar woman comes into the shop. She's in the shop, and they're like, "Can you leave? Please? And she's like, no, this room looks really familiar." And they're like, great, but can you go? Like, kind of busy, kind of got things to attend to, so can you leave? And she's like, no. The beggar woman's like, you look so familiar, man. Like, you look so familiar to me, and I do not remember who you are or where I know you from, but I've seen you before. But Sweeney can hear the judge outside, and he's like, well, I've only kind of got one option here, and he kills the beggar woman. So he sends the beggar woman's body down the chute, and the judge comes in, and the judge sits in the chair, and he's just like, wait, let's wait for Joanna. Let's just wait in this room, and everything will be fine. Let's just wait for her, okay? And all of a sudden, they're singing a nice little song, and the judge looks up, and he's like, you look so familiar. And he realises it's Benjamin Parker. But Todd slits his throat, and he sends him down the chute, and the judge is dead. Thank the Lord. The judge is swiftly killed. I feel like his death is actually pretty underwhelming in the show, but it's about to get a whole lot of unhinged, so it's fine. Anyway, the judge is dead, and Sweeney's like, oh yeah, the child. Gotta find him. So he goes down the stairs, and he's like, oh crap, I forgot my razor. Gotta go back and get that, because that's kind of my weapon of choice. And he comes back in, and Joanna's there, and he is like, who are you? And tries to kill his own daughter. But then Mrs. Lovett shouts. She's like shouting from downstairs. And so he leaves her alone. And Joanna's like, oh my god, my actual dad just tried to kill me, as if I hadn't been traumatized enough. And she escapes. So they are down in the basement. And so the judge's body is there, and the beggar woman's body is there. Mrs. Lovett is trying to drag the beggar woman's body into the oven, right? And there's like when she opens the furnace to like burn them to death, even though they're already dead, like some like light comes on the bodies, and Sweeney looks at the beggar woman and realizes what he's done, because the face of the beggar woman is the face of his wife, Lucy. Sweeney's like, what the hell? Like, what the hell has happened? Like, you told me she was dead. Like, she was dead, And now, but she wasn't dead. She was there, and I've just killed her. I've just killed my wife, the one person other than Joanna that I cared about most in the world. The person I came back for. Like, this is like drama. This is tea. Like, he's just killed his own wife. And so he's like, goes to Miss Lovett. He's like, what do you mean? You told me she was dead. And she's like, well, actually, I didn't say she was dead. I said something that would make it sound like she was dead, but actually, when she poisoned herself, I know I said she was dead in the video, but I did it to get this kind of reaction for you if you have any reaction. But in the show, she says, well, I said she poisoned herself. I didn't say that she died. Because she didn't. She went crazy. And she turned into the beg woman. And Sweeney's like, you lied to me. And she's like, well, no, I didn't. And he's like, well, yes, you did. When I said, oh, I thought she was dead, you didn't deny it. Mr. Lovett's like, okay, yeah, maybe I did lie a little bit, but I love you, and I could be a better wife than Lucy, and like, I love you, and like, we should just be happy together. Everything's great. And he's like, okay, no, that's fair. And they have a little nice dance. And then he throws her into the furnace. Yep, that's what happens. He is like, oh yeah, everything's nice, well and good. Push you into the furnace, shut the door and kill you. Like, no, that is what happens. And you hear her screams and she's burning alive. And Sweeney's like, well, you did that. You thought you made me kill my wife. And so, your own fault. Sorry, not sorry. But like, as well as this, he's in utter despair. His wife is dead. He's in the pits of hell, really. He's doing pretty bad. And so he goes back to his wife's body and he's like mourning her, obviously. But then little Tobias comes out. He creeps out from his little hidey hole, and he's insane too now, because he's seen a lot of things that a 10-year-old should not be seeing. He's seen death. He's seen bodies. He's eaten a pie with hair and fingernails in it. He's not doing too great. Tobias, this 10-year-old boy, picks up Sweeney Todd's razor because he's dropped it, because he's mourning his wife, and he slits Sweeney's throat. Yeah, and Sweeney dies. And because he's so insane, he just starts grinding the meat grinder. And that is the end of the show. What? This is a creepy ending. It's a great ending, but it's a creepy ending because literally in the span of, I think, like 10-15 minutes of runtime, Sweeney has died. Mrs. Lovett has died. The Beadle has died. The Judge has died. His wife has died. Joanna has almost died. And Tobias has gone insane. So, like, it's a pretty crazy last 15 minutes. But it's phenomenal, and it's great. They do sing a little final ballad of Sweeney Todd. They do a little reprise, because of course they do. And Sweeney Todd smiles at the audience. And then he just spears. And it's so good. I love this show. I feel like I don't speak about it enough. At least you've not heard it enough in the amount of time I'm speaking, even though I don't know how long this video is actually going to be. But, well and truly, what is this show? Like, it was based off a Victorian fairy tale, so naturally it's not going to be like the most normal thing in the world. But it's crazy. It's insane. Many people die. And we've attended the tale, and the tale is an interesting tale, let me tell you that. But that is the whole plot. That is genuinely the whole plot. And I'm going to tell you a little story. It's not a very interesting story. In fact, the story is very short and very uninteresting. But I'm going to tell you anyway, because I forgot to mention it when we were going through, and I can't bother recording it now and placing it back where it's supposed to be. So, I have watched I was going to say amateur. It was more than amateur. A drama school production of the show. I'm not going to say where, but you could probably figure it out. I don't think it would be that hard. And they did the show. And do you remember what I was talking about? The Joanna Quartet, which is objectively the best song in the show, even though I don't actually like it that much. There is a line in that song which says, and it's said by Sweeney, it is a bit of a weird line for him to say, but live and let live, whatever. And he says, and are you beautiful and pale with yellow hair like wheat? It's an odd lyric, sure, especially to be sung by Sweeney Todd. But when I saw it, the man playing Sweeney, he kind of did a bit of line merging. That's kind of what happened. Because there is another line in the song which goes, like me, at the end. So what I heard was, and are you beautiful and pale with yellow hair like meat? And that is the one thing that I remember about watching that production. Like, it's just, it's so iconic, and me and my friends reference it all the time. I will also say, if you are going to watch Sweeney Todd in any capacity, please go and watch it with someone that has never seen Sweeney Todd before. When I watched that production of Sweeney Todd, I saw it with two of my friends. one who had seen Sweeney Todd before and one who hadn't, and genuinely it was just as entertaining watching my friend who had never seen it before watch the show as it was just watching the show itself, especially at the end, because it's kind of crazy the amount of people that die in like such a short space of time, and watching people literally gripping their seats like because they had no idea what was going on was genuinely one of the most enjoyable theatre experience I've ever had, because I thought it was absolutely hilarious that the people were reacting so strongly in this way, and it just proves that Stephen Sondheim is a master of his own invention. That is the plot of Sweeney Todd. Do I think this video was good? Absolutely not. I think it was a bit of a fever dream, if I'm honest, but I had a lot of fun doing it, so counts as a win for me. Now I'm going to edit it all, so that's going to be really fun. But I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a bit different. It was something a bit edgy, a bit wayward, if you will. But I wanted to do it because I wanted to see if this kind of content was something people would enjoy watching, but also to see if this is content that I enjoy making, because I don't know if you can tell, but I've been in a lot of burnout recently and I've just kind of stopped enjoying making content just as a whole. So I thought, why not do something that I know I'm going to enjoy doing, which I have. This has been a lot of fun and not tiring and stuff. And like see if it actually does well with other people. So yeah. Also make comments about the audio. Like I've had some listens back and it does sound a lot better. And also if you have any recommendations for musicals that you would like me to do this with, please let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Keep enjoying musicals as much as me. And I'll see you in the next one.